Welcome to another edition of Squib Kick Radio. I am your host, as always, Elias Powell. I'm actually joined here personally with Harry Burton as we are recording in Regina tonight, and we also have Riley Pollock joining us. Riley, how are you doing?
I'm lonely and sad. I want to be with you guys.
Yeah, it is nice to be back in the hometown and being able to record in person with Harry. Harry, how are you doing?
Doing well. Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, always good to see you. Riley, we have a pretty quick episode tonight, you could say. We've got some NFL injury news, which is surprising because it is only May. We do have our NFL Draft review as well for you, and then Riley's going to take us through a little bit of what's going on with the upcoming CFL Draft and where the collective bargaining agreement is going with the CFL. And with that, I think, well, the best place to start is injuries. Riley, what's going on? It's only May.
Yeah, we during the draft last week, we kind of heard some things coming out of the Seattle's camp about receiver Doug Baldwin and him dealing with what they called multiple injuries that could force him to retire at just the age of 30. So you're a Seahawks fan. Doug Baldwin's really a fan favorite and a locker room favorite as well, and it's tough to hear from the team that he might have to retire at such a young age, especially because last season was the first in his 6 seasons that he ever missed any playing time. So one bad season of injuries has kind of derailed his whole career, and it's just kind of tough to hear.
Yeah, it's definitely surprising, especially coming after drafting a receiver in the second round. That's pretty much seemed when it happened that we found out, and he's always kind of played banged up a bit. You know, he would never really miss time, but he's really good at playing through injuries. I guess this last season was pretty tough. I don't know if I can see him maybe retiring. I think he's going to try and come back and play through the injury a bit and just get into camp and see how it feels. But yeah, definitely interesting news coming out of Seattle.
Yeah, it's tough to hear, and then you feel for Isaiah Crowell as well. It came out earlier this week that he tore his Achilles, going to miss the entire season. He signed a 1-year deal with the Raiders, and you know it's tough for Crowell because those 1-year deals are kind of just like proving yourself, especially in a Raiders backfield that wasn't established. And that Achilles injury, that might derail his career as well. I mean, 1 year with an Achilles is a long time for a running back who already has very, very short careers. So it's tough for him. It's tough for Oakland because they're kind of thin at the running back position. And it sparked rumors that Marshawn Lynch has said he will come out of retirement if the Raiders come calling. He just retired last week.
Yeah, that is that's always good to see. You want to see Beast Mode come back and play. You know, as great of a send off as he got last week. You know, it's always good. Harry, what do you think about your Oakland Raiders?
I mean, Riley's right. You really do got a feel for Crowell, but as a Raiders fan, if Beast Mode comes back for one more season, how can you be upset about it?
Yeah, it'll be sweet. I hope he comes back. But you know, having drafted a young running back, I could see them giving the young buck the rock early in the season, Riley.
Yeah, and I believe Doug Martin is coming back now as well, so you do have that secondary back to give Josh Jacobs a few snaps off. You know, it's going to be different for him. Like we talked about last week, Jacobs was in a split in Alabama, so he's never really carried a full load, and the NFL is a completely different beast than the NCAA, so there's definitely going to need another running back to be there to help Jacobs out.
Definitely, and we've mentioned some of the young players drafted already, and I think that's a good segue into what essentially went down with the draft, Riley. Like, how did your Falcons do? I didn't see them making really many moves, to be honest. I didn't even pay attention to the Falcons specifically, but how do you think the draft went?
Well, if they want to keep Matt Ryan from being crushed and giving Devontae Freeman some holes to run through, they did a pretty good job. They took an O-lineman with their first-round pick and then traded the Los Angeles Rams to get their first and took another offensive lineman. So 2 offensive linemen in the first round, and they really shored up the line. I don't really, they kind of need a better pass rush. They could have maybe beefed up their defensive backfield a little bit, but I don't hate the moves. They're not sexy moves, but I really like that they are going to beef up that O-line and help keep Matt Ryan upright.
Yeah, and it's good to let or see them acknowledging that they need to protect their franchise guy. So yeah, solid drafting. My Seahawks, they did a lot of moving in the draft, which surprised me quite a bit. It was hard predicting who they were going to take at that given pick because they moved back 2 or 3 times, I believe. Ended up going with a defensive end from TCU. I mean, the defense is going to need some help. I just start building through the draft. I like that, and then obviously taking DK Metcalf late, it was huge. I was stoked to see it because pretty much anyone who got him that deep has a steal.
Yeah, I mean, Metcalf is raw. He's a very, very raw talent, but there's no doubting his speed and size are something that pretty much any NFL team should want. If they can work with him and get him maybe be a little bit better of a route runner, I mean, he could absolutely be a steal. And I really do like the Seahawks beefing up their defense. They took a defensive end, a middle linebacker, outside linebacker, a safety, a D tackle. I mean, they really wanted to focus on that defense because it's kind of dwindled down in the past few seasons. The Legion of Boom is really no more, and maybe this new batch of rookies can help them get back to where they were before.
Yeah, and having Russell Wilson throwing you the ball can make DK look really well.
Yeah, and they took Gary Jennings as well, another receiver, and John Ursua. So 3 receivers in the draft. I mean, clearly that was a position that they wanted to tackle, and with Doug Baldwin's uncertainty, they did a pretty good job, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And Harry, with the amount of pressure that would have been on the Oakland Raiders organization this draft, how do you just think they fared? Are you as a Raven fan happy right now? That is what the most important thing is.
Yeah, I think as a Raiders fan, you're never truly happy. It's it's a matter of hope with some like happiness to that. So you got to believe in Mike Mayock, and I really like the interview that came out with Ferguson, the first pick they took. It was a phone call with Mike Mayock where Mike was proclaiming to him how the only reason they're drafting him is for his leadership at this position. Like, it was totally an unprecedented pick with all the mock drafts. And I liked it. I was like, yeah, okay, that's what the Raiders need. They need something in the locker room to overcome Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah, Farrell's a really good defensive end that they took there. It's a bit of a reach, but I think they did a pretty good job of that. And then Josh Jacobs, too, the running back, they hammered home that they needed a running back. They picked one in the first round, one of the 2 times that I was actually right out of my 17 picks. So thank you so much, Mayock, for making me sound smart at least twice. But yeah, they really beefed up the defense as well. And I mean, it's not beautiful in Raiderland, but the future looks a little brighter than it did the day before the draft.
Yeah, I agree. They are definitely in a better place than they were a week ago, you could say.
Yeah.
Riley, you touched on it a little bit. Why don't you just break down for everyone how exactly you did on your picks when we were arguing about that 35 to 40% range? Why don't you tell the folks how you did?
Well, for anyone who's a mathematician, 2 out of 17 perfectly correct isn't quite 40%. But it was hard. It was hard to only pick 17 players. I mean, I spread them out over 4 rounds. There was a few spots where I got the position right at that draft spot, but not the right player. I had Marquise Brown being the first receiver off the board. That was true. But yeah, I had the gimme at Kyler Murray, and then Josh Jacobs going to the Raiders was correct too. So not great. It's my first time ever mocking, so can only go up from here, I guess.
Yeah. Only up from here, you would hope, Riley.
Yeah. How about Daniel Jones going to the Giants at 6, though? That was, like, oof.
Yeah.
Everyone except the Giants loved Dwayne Haskins as the second quarterback. I do not know what they saw in Daniel Jones. I know you like Daniel Jones, but I don't think he's a second quarterback off the board.
No, I don't either. I liked him, but, I think he could have been a late second round steal, to be honest. But the Giants saw something they would have had to, you would think, from not taking Haskins. It's been funny, to say the least, seeing all the videos from draft day and people just raging on their TVs. That's always good, because in the past. Go ahead.
The one video I saw was like a Collins jersey, an Odell jersey, and some other guy who's not there anymore. And it's these three kids, probably like 18, 19, just freaking out because they thought they were getting their franchise player in Dwayne Haskins. And instead it's Daniel Jones, who probably none of them knew who he was because he plays in the ACC.
Yeah, it was a pretty funny pick. How about the Dolphins not taking a quarterback and then trading for Rosen from the Arizona Cardinals?
Yeah, I thought they were going to pick up Haskins, honestly. Like, he was still available there. But I guess they just believe in Josh Rosen a little bit more. That's pretty good trade. The Dolphins getting Rosen, Cardinals getting a second and a fifth. So, I don't know. We'll see how Rosen plays out. But the Dolphins have no one at quarterback. They had Fitzmagic there, who will be amazing for 4 games. But those other 12 games, they need a real quarterback to step in. I don't know if Rosen's the answer, but even if they suck this year, Tua's going to be first on the board next year.
Yeah, definitely. One player I did want to touch on, just because, being a disliker of the Patriots, even if that is like possible now, the Patriots taking N'Keal Harry. I think that's a huge steal. It's the first time Bill Belichick has taken a wide receiver in the first round. So if the greatest coach of all time is seeing something in this receiver to take him first overall for the first time, that says a lot to me. And I would look for him to get the ball quite a bit this season from Tom Brady.
Yeah, that's a huge pickup. And I mean, any receiver that's in the Belichick system usually looks pretty good. So yeah, maybe he probably will lead all rookie receivers in receiving yards just because he's with Tom Brady. I definitely wouldn't be surprised at that.
For sure.
But yeah, there's just, I mean, I got to just rip on Tampa for a second here. I'm pretty sure they took a punter in the 4th round. And they, just a couple of seasons ago, they took a kicker really early too, and he's not even on the team anymore because he blew it so much. His name is slipping my mind right now, but I mean, that's just a bad pick. How do you take a punter in the 4th round? Oh, Roberto Aguayo, right? That kid,
yeah.
that kicker. Yeah, he got taken way too early 3 years ago, and they take a punter again this year. So, yeah, I don't know. Come on, Tampa, figure it out.
Yeah,
but they did get Devin White. He's pretty sweet.
Yeah, he is, and I think with that, I'm good to move on to some CFL news. We've got obviously the ongoing CBA, Riley, as well as the upcoming draft. Why don't you tell us a bit about what's going on with the CBA talks?
All right. Well, the CFL and the CFL PA got back together for the first time in over 3 weeks earlier this week. They had 2 days of talks where they talked a lot about the financials. A lot of their talks so far have been rule changes and stuff like that, roster stuff, but they really got down to the financials this week. And earlier last week, the players voted over 99% in favor of striking and not attending camp if a new deal isn't reached. So that's a huge percentage. Clearly, the players are pissed off. But now the CFL's coming out and saying that 5 of the teams aren't in legal striking position because of the province that they play out of. So it's just getting uglier and uglier. I mean, they're threatening to suspend players that plan to strike illegally in their mind. The CBA expires May 18th. Camp's supposed to start May 19th for all 9 teams. So, I mean, they're getting down to it here. We're into May. We're just over 2 weeks away from that CBA expiring, and the players are pissed off. The CFL seems to be posturing up still, just trying to get any leverage that they can, and it's just a mess to me right now, and it's looking pretty bleak right now that they're even going to get a deal done, but I guess we'll see.
Well, Riley, what I guess not provinces per se, but what teams are not in legal position to actually strike?
Just one. It's got to be the 3 Ontario. It's the 3 Ontario teams and the 2 Alberta teams. So Toronto, Ottawa, Hamilton, Edmonton, and Calgary. The labor laws are a little different than the rest of the country, and basically the CFL saying if you strike, it's illegal and you will be suspended. So those two provinces, not sure what's going to happen there, but Bo Levi's been pretty vocal about the fact that he won't be attending camp with the Stamps if there's nothing done. And James Wilder Jr. in Toronto as well. So those are two really big names that technically can't strike, I guess.
That's interesting that they actually can't strike. Does this pose any sort of advantage in maybe leveraging trades earlier in the season then, Riley, if there's going to be suspensions of players that might hold out?
I don't know about trades. The CFL's not very good at big name trades, but they need a CBA to start the season, so they can attend camp without a CBA, but I don't believe that the next season can start. So if they're striking from camp, that's one thing for a suspension, but they need the CBA in order to start the new season. So I don't think any big trades will be made, but you might see it in the draft a little bit that some players that are planning on holding out, maybe their position gets filled through a Canadian spot in the draft. But I don't know. It's really messy for me. It's a lot of legal stuff that I did not go to school for. I went to school to talk about sports. So I don't know a whole lot of legal stuff, but I'm trying to follow it along as closely as possible because, I mean, the CFL is probably my favorite sports league in the world. So it's going to affect me. It's going to affect a lot of people if they don't get a CBA going here. But, I mean, I can't imagine it's good for the league or the players to not get one going, so I'm still hopeful.
Yeah, and with we've touched on it a couple times, actually. The amount of momentum that the CFL has been gathering over the past couple of years, a strike and holdout would just be absolutely detrimental for the league and the progress that it's made. Because, go ahead.
They've just added all these international things, right? Like all these leagues that are sending players over and stuff. They're trying to strike up a deal with Mexico. ESPN and ESPN Plus have just struck up a new deal with the CFL. I mean, you're right. It could be pretty ugly and pretty detrimental to the league if they don't get a season going on time.
Yeah, it definitely would be. Well, what about the CFL Draft then, Riley? You touched on maybe seeing some more Canadian players taken. What is coming up with the CFL Draft? I guess when is it? I don't even know.
The CFL Draft is this Thursday, May 2nd, so tomorrow when we're recording. And it's a little up and down. There's really good players that have signed free agent tenders with the NFL right after the draft, so they're going to be going to camp and stuff. So those players that are really good will probably slip a little bit in the draft until teams are willing to take a risk on them not making the NFL. So yeah, there's not really a set number one this year because there's so many good players that are going to the NFL. I mean, there's 2 or 3 really good guys that didn't get that NFL shot. I think Drew Desjardins from Waterloo is going to be the first one taken by the Argos. The Argos have said like they're going to need a pretty good offer in order to trade that first overall pick. So I expect them to pick first tomorrow. But they're keeping their lips sealed. A lot of teams let it be known who they're taking first overall. Toronto's like, nah, we're going to let the other GMs squirm a little bit, kind of mess up their draft boards. And because there isn't a set first overall, it will kind of screw with the other GMs in the league if it's not known who Toronto takes until they step up to the podium and take that player.
Yeah. Does it not seem a little early to be having this draft if some of the best talent is going to be going down south regardless? Doesn't that seem almost counterintuitive as for building as a league? Obviously, the NFL is bigger, and these kids are going to want to go down there and try and make the teams, but why not back the draft off a bit? Because
camp's in 2 weeks.
I guess, yeah, camp's in, yeah. We do start early. That's the thing.
These mini camps that these NFL players or possible CFL players attend, these NFL camps, they're not for a little while. So, like, you can't hold off the league that much further because then you're just running with the NFL and it's freezing cold. And so they're kind of just a victim to this system, I guess. I mean, they're always going to be the secondary league. But a lot of players do come back. I mean, the Riders just signed their ex-first-round pick from a couple years ago. So he's coming back finally after 2 seasons, and so, I mean, it usually works out in the end. It's a long shot for a lot of these Canadian players to make the NFL, but you look at someone like Mark Chapman, who Hamilton took first overall last year. He's a receiver. He kind of kicked around some NFL camps, and then he played in the AAF for a bit, and now I think he's going to hang on for the XFL, so this Canadian kid just really does not want to play in the CFL. I'm not sure what his hate is. I mean, he's already been through a league disbanding halfway through a season this year. I don't know why he'd want to stick around for the XFL next year when the same thing could just as easily happen.
Yeah, he just must want to play American football. That must be what it is, you know?
I mean, he did play college, right? He didn't play in Canada.
Okay. He didn't play in Canada then.
No.
Okay, that makes sense. More sense, you could say.
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, if there's a team willing to offer you first-round pick, it's not like he'd be making pennies as a former first-round pick. He'd get paid decently, but he just likes the American game, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, well, their American dollars worth more, so probably could be making quite a bit more money.
Just a interesting stat here. Since 1980, an O-lineman has been taken first overall 46% of the time, almost half the time. So I expect that trend to continue tomorrow.
Awesome. Well, you can all tune into the draft, well, depending on when you want to listen to this, Thursday, May 2nd, or today when you're listening to this. And with that, Riley, do you have anything more on the CFL draft?
Just keep your eye on that QB from UBC. Michael O'Connor could be a steal. He could be the real deal here in the CFL, and he's actually attending a minicamp by the Seattle Seahawks. So he's getting a bit of an NFL look as well. It'll be interesting to see where he goes in tomorrow's draft.
Definitely will be interesting. Well, with that, as always, thanks for listening. If you don't already, follow us on the social media at Squib Kick Radio. And with that, we'll talk to you guys next week.
Have fun in Regina, boys.
Will do.
I got you stuck off the realness. Think not this shit's too hot. Too hot. Too hot. Rock you in your face. Dab your brain with your nose bone. I'm a vampire walking on the surface of the sun.